We're on overtime. Hey, I'm Warren Sprouse. This is the Bible Forum. We're here to look at life through a biblical lens to solve all the world's problems in 2 hours or less. We encourage you to join us on Sunday night right here at thebibleforum.net. Tonight I want to talk to you a little bit about a university discovery. Here's a leading university that has discovered something they think is brand new, and they want our praise. They want us to recognize the value of this. To build the background, let me just share with you a little bit here. 2,500 years ago, the Bible declared that if you train up a child in the way he should go, when he is old, I added older, he will not depart from it. Old Testament Proverbs, chapter 22, verse 6. Every parent who has ever lived gives evidence of this truism. Now, a leading university has published the results of a study, no indication as to how much it cost, a study that they are very pleased to reveal. And it seems, according to their study, they have learned that the more a child lies, telling fibs, the easier it is for that child to lie. I know, it's earth-shattering. Who knew? Well, the answer here is just about every human being on the planet until the last few generations of Americans, the progressive parents who don't seem to know it. But this is the way of our modern culture. Each generation is having to learn life lessons for themselves. It didn't used to be like this. Why is it now? Well, it's in part because young people refuse to accept anything that's old. Things like what? Like parenting principles and skills. And because parents fail to convey the information and the cultural values and principles of their forebears. Because anything that's more than 30 years old isn't worth having. Our society changes every 5 years. You're telling me about something that's 100 years old, I don't want to hear it. So we now believe that we can marry, divorce, remarry, perhaps several times, and the result in terms of our lives and in terms of our children's lives will largely be the same as if we did not do any of that. Well, in the words of this leading university, not true. Doesn't work that way. Not in real life. We believe we can indulge our senses with drugs or sex or media or anything we like as much as we choose and still live a meaningful, productive, and peaceful life. No, you can't. We think we can let our children do whatever they want as long as they don't get hurt. And they'll grow up to be the productive citizens that we want them to be with average physical or social problems. No. Are you getting the point? What parent allows their children to lie? What parent allows their children only to eat what they like? What parent allows their children to stay up as long as they choose? Well, it seems the average 21st century parent does all of the above and more. Why? Well, it may be because they and even their own parents were not trained properly. But because of this lack of training, acculturation, standards, and guidance, the society has changed. And I don't think anybody in their right mind thinks that it changed for the better. In the year 1734, Alexander Pope coined another truism. He said, as the twig is bent, so grows the tree. 1700. For those educated in state or federal schools, that's almost 300 years ago. And trust me when I tell you, it wasn't news then. The meaning is centered on the idea that early influences have a permanent effect. Early child development is critical. It's based on a mixture of nature and nurture, and it must be applied regularly and consistently if you want a proper result. The effects of parental, environmental, and peer influences can have a huge impact on a young, molding mind, both for good and for ill. The experiences they go through, the lessons they learn, can and will shape who they are and how they act later in life. Or not. The lesson here? God knows what's best. He made us. He gave us this environment in which to live. He has outlined the principles and illustrated the lessons in over 6,000 years of human history. To help us, he has brought a book into being, a book about himself, about his purposes, about his plans. But it's also a book about life and how to live it. Most people reject the book because it advocates for a higher moral purpose than we want to embrace or even think about. Why is that? Is it because this book is obscure, hard to find? Is it because the book is hard to understand? Is it because the principles in the book don't work? No. It's because human beings don't want anyone telling them what to do or how to do it. Have you ever seen a 2-year-old? But this book also comes with dire consequences for people who reject its author and that author's standards. And that goes right to the heart, not just of the issue, but to the heart of men and women. People who are stubborn and deceitful by nature. A heart that deceives us before it deceives anybody else. And because of all of that, we don't want it. And the children are paying the price. Have you seen them lately? Can you imagine the kinds of children those children are going to be bringing into this world? Now do you understand why they don't want to bring children into this world? They don't even want to get married. Everything in life is being postponed so they can have a good time until it's almost too late. Where in generations past, young people wanted to get married, wanted to start a family, wanted to buy a house, wanted to build something for the future. These kids don't want to do that. They'll stay home until they get kicked out. They don't want a 9-to-5 job. They don't want anything that's going to put pressure on them. They just want to have a good time. Why? Because that's how they were raised. How are you raising your kids? I'll give you a hint. Be mean. Tell them they have to. It to be the making of them. And don't let them lie and get away with it.